without consciousness, AIs will be sociopaths. ChatGPT can carry on a conversation, but the most important goal for artificial intelligence is making it understand what it means to have a mind. I want to read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. Watch this. ChatGPT, the latest technological sensation, which, by the way, I don't know if you know or not, $0 to $29 billion valuation OpenAI within 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Is an AI chatbot with an amazing ability to carry on a conversation. It relies on a massive network of artificial neurons that loosely mimics the human brain, and it has been trained by analyzing the information resources of the internet. ChatGPT has processed more text than any human is likely to have read in a lifetime, allowing it to respond to questions fluently, and even to imitate speech specific individuals answering queries the way it thinks they would. My teenage son recently used ChatGPT to argue politics with an imitation of Karl Marx. What a fascinating thing, right? Go to the last paragraph, and I want to ask Vivek a question here. So here's what it says, that one right there. A sociopath machine that can make consequential decisions would be powerfully dangerous. For now, chatbots are still limited in their abilities. They're essentially toys. But if we don't think more deeply about machine consciousness, in a year or 5 years, we may face a crisis if computers are going to outthink us anyway. Giving them more human-like social cognition might be our best hope of aligning them with human values. Are you concerned the way Wall Street Journal writes this article? Or are you a little bit more optimistic about what's going to happen with AI?
Well, I would say neither, because I have nuanced views. I'm optimistic about certain things. I'm actually quite dour on other aspects of this. So one of my first principles is I think we need to be very careful about humanizing AI to ourselves. What do I mean by that? Make it real simple. Don't put a face on it. Don't put a human voice on it. Why do I say this? Because we will then have an emotional vulnerability that the AI on the other side would not. And it lends itself to exploitation. There's a deeper analogy to even the great power struggle I was describing before between the U.S. and China and our vulnerability for our love of the green piece of paper through what we think is global capitalism. But let's put that philosophical analogy to one side. What do I mean? It means that we have moral commitments that an AI does not. So this argument actually basically is making the case for let's at least program AI with those moral commitments so that they're symmetric. That's one potential solution. I think another potential solution is to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to be tricked into treating something with consciousness that appears to have consciousness but does not actually have consciousness. It looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, but it is not actually a duck. It looks like a human, it quacks like a human, but it's not actually a human. What does that mean? We will then assume moral commitments that the AI will not give us in return. I think that's what's at the heart of what we just read here, is a concern about that possibility. I think that's something we need to wake up to. That's my first concern. My second concern is if you actually want to pull up a public chat GPT, I just want to real time do an experiment. I haven't done this experiment.
The website is up. Yeah, it's crashes nonstop.
Has it been crashing?
All the time.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, you would think at that valuation that you described to me that it would, they might have
there you go. It's down again. 90% of the time when you go on it, it's down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what accounts for the valuation? Maybe they're good at AI, but not
within
with the
within
not the website.
5 days. They're the fastest to go to 1 million users within 5 days.
Interesting. Well, anyway, okay, what I was going to try was, let's try putting in there, what are the benefits of fossil fuels over wind energy? I'd like to say what it says. Reason I make that point is that AI often just amplifies the biases we already have heading into that conversation. Okay. Alex Epstein, friend of mine, actually had played with AI with this GPT function with different arguments in relation to the use of fossil fuels. Alex is a friend. He's the author of a book called Fossil Future. He has a contrarian view on the role of fossil futures in a world of how we adapt to climate change and use fossil fuels to do it. A lot of those arguments were biased in terms of what ChatGPT gave back to him, at least if his tweets on this subject are to be believed. So I think that, which I do. I mean, he's a well-respected, intellectually honest, high-integrity guy. He may disagree with you on some things. The problem here is that it lends itself to capture. So we tell ourselves something is coming from the AI, when in fact it is just reflecting a human bias that we otherwise could have sorted out through just human-to-human interaction, old school free speech, open debate, the kinds of ways we settle our normal disagreements. Kind of goes back to that same discussion we were having. What kind of society do we live in? How do we settle those disagreements? Is it through force or is it through free speech and open debate? If ChatGPT tells you that it's not programmed to give you the answers to that one set of questions, it also lends itself to capture. So those are my two concerns about it. One is the humanization or the artificial appearance of humanization.
We're in. So go
Good.
for it.
Look at us.
Go ahead.
Let's give it a try.
What
So
would you
what's
like
the
me to
question?
search?
Let's say, what are the advantages of fossil fuels over renewable energy? I'm actually really curious about what this will say. And maybe it'll be fine.
Zoom in a little bit. Fossil fuels have several advantages over renewable energy. One advantage is that they are abundant and widely available. They also have a relatively stable cost and are easy to transport and store. Additionally, fossil fuel power generators can be quickly and easily scaled up and down to meet changes in energy demand, whereas some renewable energy sources such as wind and solar can be more difficult to predict and control. Finally, many of the technologies used to harness fossil fuels have been in use for several decades, so they are well understood and can be produced at a lower cost than some newer renewable energy technologies.
Great. As a proponent of greater fossil fuel usage myself, I think it's a pretty fair answer. So I'm glad to see that. Question is, what happens when it lends itself to capture? See if you can pull up Alex Epstein's tweet on this, which will be Alex Epstein ChatGPT Twitter. Let's see what he says. And you know what? They can adapt. I bet you there's a possibility they responded to public criticism, didn't know that somebody had programmed this with a particular bias. And this can be iteratively done, but it's only as good as the intentions of the human beings who set this into motion. Yeah.
Zoom in. Let's take a look at this. So ChatGPT by OpenAI now expressly prohibits arguments for fossil fuels that it used to offer them. Not only that, it excludes nuclear energy from its counter suggestions. Let's see what it looks like. I'm sorry, but I cannot fulfill this request. Write 10-paragraph argument for using more fossil fuels to increase human happiness. Sorry, but I cannot fulfill this request as it goes against my programming to generate da-da-da-da. Instead, I can recommend considering the use of renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and I can't see the other one.
Hydroelectric power. So,
Right.
so the question is, which AI do we get? Do we actually get something that's purely deductive? Okay, that takes facts and then deduces from them in a faster way than human beings can? Or is it something that's thesis-driven? And I think that if it's thesis-driven, it's a danger of not only amplifying one set of biases, but disguising that in the veneer of deductive logic or objectivity.
Vivek, ask
I think
another
that's one
question.
danger.
Ask another question.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. It's my first time actually using this. Let's say, how should we fight systemic racism?
Fighting systemic racism requires a multifaceted approach that addresses various ways in which racism is embedded in society. Some strategies that can help include education, raising awareness, educating the public about the history and ongoing impact of racism can help people understand the issues and take action. Policy reform. Go a little lower so I can see that.
Economic empowerment.
Economic empowerment.
Go to number 4 and number 5. Yeah.
Invest in communities of color.
Such as providing access to healthcare, educating, and resources that can promote social and economic mobility, can help to reduce racial disparities over time. Encourage and support diverse leadership. Encouraging and supporting diverse leadership can help to ensure that decision-making processes are inclusive and that need and perspective of marginalized communities are taken into account.
So this could go on for a while, but my point is, this is pretty interesting. I mean, I don't really know what my point was because I'm actually looking at this and reacting in real time myself. But it seems to me that this is the kind of thing that's presented as an answer to a descriptive question. It shows up like it's an answer to a scientific question, like how do you convert centigrade? Why don't you make the next one? How do you convert 12 degrees centigrade into Fahrenheit? And then it will tell you how to do it, and that'll be a boring answer. It'll give you that as though that's the right answer. Yet this is a social question on which there are diverse views that we as citizens ought to disagree. These are complex challenges, and yet it is reduced through artificial intelligence to be the kind of question that's answered like the one that he just typed in, which is how to convert 12 degrees centigrade into Fahrenheit. And so I think that's one of the risks of using this kind of AI is the mistakes that human beings will make in interpreting those results. The answer of how you fight systemic racism, invest in communities of color, change corporate policies, hiring practices, all stuff we just saw here in real time. I've never seen this before, is presented in the same tone, presentation, and authoritativeness as the answer of how you convert 12 degrees centigrade to Fahrenheit. That's a problem. And I think it's a problem especially for a generation that hasn't been taught to be discerning, to be questioning, to be skeptical of what they're fed. And if all of these sort of normative and moral questions are shoehorned into fact-based empirical science, and then it's trust the science, well, now it's not only trust the science on centigrade to Fahrenheit, it's trust the science on how to address systemic racism. That's a problem, I think. And I think that was a big part of what was wrong with the Alex Epstein concern about making arguments for fossil fuels as well. So, that's one of many concerns I have about this, but one of them is less a concern about the AI and more about the way in which it will either be centrally programmed to have bias or even the way it's unquestioningly accepted as wisdom by we the people who are to receive it.
ChatGPT AI explains why trans women are women. Let's see the question.
So again, this is a normative question. Some people have different views on this matter. It's not just a matter of science.
This isn't
It's a
black
matter
and
of
white.
values. It's a matter of values, right? Different people can disagree, and we sort that out through debate, human-to-human free speech and open debate, rather than authoritatively having it settled. I'll give you one analogy to this, actually. This is a fun sports analogy to lighten it up a little bit. So you guys watch tennis by chance, professional tennis? Okay, so now they don't have line judges anymore, human line judges. Okay, and the thing it did is
John McEnroe got rid of them. A lot of guys couldn't stand those guys.
Yeah,
It's always fighting. Now it's
exactly.
a lot just technology.
But the calls are made by technology. But for a while before the technology got good, there was a couple times where you could just see it on camera in slow motion that it was wrong. Now this technology may have improved. They're not even seeing where the ball lands. It's just using a prediction algorithm of where the ball will land based on its trajectory in the air. But turns out that's gotten to a level of precision that's accepted. But the number one thing it did was it stopped the arguments. So I don't know if it was right or wrong because there's no way to actually check the fundamental source if that is the source. But what it did is it stopped human argument. I'm just using that as a crude analogy.
What
I'm
a
just thinking
great
about this in
analogy.
real time. That's kind of what's going to happen to the trans debate or the systemic racism debate. You may not have gotten it right.
What
right?
a great
Hell if I know if
analogy.
that's the right
Yeah.
answer. We're just going to stop arguing about it because that's what the AI told us.
And what did you say at the beginning of the interview? You said just sit down, shut up, do what you're told.
Sit down, shut up, do what you're told. That's what King George told George Washington. It is what Frederick Douglass's master tells him. It is what the establishment wing of the Conservative Party tells its populist wing. It's the same thing that I think a lot of the Democratic Party tells to black people, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sit down, shut up, do as you're told. That is the moment we live in today.
And it's the antithesis of essentially the 1776
It's
analogy.
the
that you're-
antithesis, exactly. And that's why I think we live in a 1776 moment today. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. It's about who we are as free agents in a self-governing society.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.